Dear friends, I am happy to say that Thomas and his friends are still at work trying as hard as ever to prove themselves really useful engines. I am happy to say too that my father is still taking a keen interest in the region's affairs. And it is with grateful thanks that I would like to dedicate this book to him, the person who began it all, the author. Thomas stood at the top station of his branch line. He had run around Annie and Clarabelle after the morning journey and was enjoying a short rest before the run back down. His driver and fireman stood outside his cab, talking to the guard who had brought startling news. "Did you know that the station master was burgled last night?" he was asking. "You don't say," he exclaimed it. "I didn't know he had anything worth stealing." "He won cups for gardening," explained the fireman, "all taken, and then the scoundrels had the cheek to pinch his card to carry them away in. Not that new one he's so proud of," said the driver. The guard agreed, and that moment the signal rose to show the line was clear. The driver and fireman climbed into Thomas's cab. The guard blew his whistle and waved his green flag and got into Clarabelle, and Thomas set off. By the time they were through the tunnel, the train was running nicely. Road and railway were beside each other there, with only a stream between them. Thomas remembered his race with Bertie. He had only won because he could go through the hill, while Bertie had to go over it. Suddenly, a flash of colour on the road ahead caught his eye. He tried to go faster to look more closely. "Steady, Thomas," said his driver. "There's plenty of time." "Can't we get closer to that car?" panted Thomas. "It looks like the station master's to me. Lots of cars look like that," laughed his driver. He opened the regulator and they began to draw level. There were two men in the car. They waved when they saw Thomas and tried to go faster. "That's the car all right, Thomas," said the fireman, "and those two must be the thieves. But we can't stop them, and they'll be gone long before the next station." "We need a pencil, paper, and something to put a note in," said the driver. "We'll throw a message out at the next signal box." Quickly, he wrote the note and they put it in the fireman's empty lunch tin, then drawing ahead of the car. Thomas whistled to attract the signalman's attention. They slowed it so that the fireman could throw the box up to him. And as they went past, both driver and fireman shouted "Police!" at the top of their voices. By now, the stolen car had gone well ahead, and Thomas did not see it again. But the signalman telephoned police headquarters at once, and the thieves were stopped at a roadblock about 10 miles further on. That afternoon, Thomas arrived at Knapford. The Fat Controller and the station master were waiting for him. They had told the passengers the whole story. And the station master fined Thomas, his driver, and his fireman for their prompt action. The passengers cheered loudly, and they cheered even more when they heard that the station master's gardening clubs had all been found undamaged in a sack in the boot of the car. A long time ago, said the Fat Controller, waiting for silence, Thomas showed how valuable he is to the smooth running of my railway. I'm sure you will all agree that today he has once again proved himself to be a really useful engine. Thomas smiled happily.
If one morning you were to ride in Bertie the bus, you would run down the winding country road with him, cross over stone-walled bridges, and travel past Thomas's branch line. Then you would hear Bertie's friendly greeting as he sees one of his friends pass by. His name is Tom Tipper, the postman. Every day, Tom travels cheerfully around the island of Sodor. He stops at stations collecting letters and parcels from Thomas and Percy's mail train. Then he delivers the mail to farms and cottages far and wide. The engines know that anywhere their rails won't reach, Tom Tipper will collect their mail and deliver it safely come rain or shine. He's always ready to help load mailbags onto the trains, too. Thank you, Tom, whistles Percy. Yes, indeed, agrees Thomas. You're a really useful postman. Ah, replies Tom, but where would I be without me van? We make a grand pair. One day, Tom wasn't at the platform. A postman they didn't know dumped the bags on the platform and disappeared. What happened to Tom? Wondered Percy. And his old van, said the driver. No wonder the new postman looks cross. Trying to carry mailbags on a bicycle would make anyone miserable. Next morning, the engines were glad to see Tom back again, but he looked very sad. The postmaster decided my van was too expensive to run. The rounds take longer on my bike. I'm sorry, I can't stop to help you. I wish I could cheer Tom Tipper up, sighed Percy, the small engine. He was just wondering about how this might be done when his thoughts were rudely interrupted. A man was shouting at Tom Tipper. You've got to come back to Sir Topham Hatt's office. He needs you to sign some important papers right away. Oh, dear, replied Tom Tipper. This is going to make me later still. He was in a hurry and being careless. He propped his bike against Percy's mail car and rushed away. Stop, cried Percy. But Tom was out of sight. There was worse to come. Percy's driver hadn't seen the bike and he started away. Oh, no, cried Percy. Now there'll be trouble. And there was. Percy's driver quickly stopped the train. Everyone came running to the scene. Tom Tipper's bicycle was in pieces. I'm sorry, Mr. Tipper, apologized Percy. Never mind, Percy, said the postman. It wasn't your fault. But now I've only my legs to get the mail delivered. Whatever will happen next? Tom Tipper soon found out. Next day, he was waiting happily for Percy. Whistled Percy. Is that a smart new van I see? It is indeed. That accident did me a good turn, Percy. My chief decided a new van would do the job. Much better than another bike, and worth the expense. Now I can always be on time again. So I did help, beamed Percy. But by accident, you might say. On starry nights when the moon is full and the air still, You can hear the sounds of faraway ships and distant laughter. They echo over the hills and through the valley, down calm canals and sleepy inlets. Every engine knows that these are the sounds that say the harbor is hard at work at the big station by the sea. One night, a special load of fish was ordered. Sir Topham Hatt decided that extra vans must be added to the train that the men call the Flying Kipper. The only vans available were old ones. They had not been used for a long time. Henry waited impatiently by the quayside as Duck shunted them into position. Thomas puffed by with the mail train. Hello, Duck. Going fishing? I'd take care if I were you. Why? Huffed Duck. Well, for one thing, puffed Thomas, remembering his own experience, if fish get into an engine's boiler, they always cause trouble. And for another, fish can be awfully smelly. And I know what I'm talking about. Good night. Henry grunted dreadfully. You'll just have to put up with it, Henry, said his driver. At least the extra load will mean you can have another engine help us up Gordon's Hill. Meanwhile, Duck was waiting at Edwards Station so that he could help the heavy train by pushing from behind. Henry made good progress. When they reached Edwards Station, his driver stopped the train beyond the platform. Then Henry gave a special signal. Beep, 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 beep. I need help, please. Beep, beep, replied Duck. I won't be long. Duck buffered gently up to Henry's train. He was not coupled on. Henry would then be able to run on without stopping when they reached the top of the hill. Ready, whistled Duck, and off they went. Soon they reached Gordon's Hill. Push hard, puffed Henry. We're doing it, replied Duck. Henry was pulling his train harder than he realized. Duck felt the weight on his buffers slacken. Then Duck noticed something else. There's no sign of a tail lamp, he puffed. He whistled, but there was no reply. Meanwhile, Henry had noticed something too. My train's getting heavier, he thought to himself. I'm slowing down. Then there was trouble. No one was hurt, but a strong smell of fish hung in the air. Next day, workmen found the broken tail lamp at the bottom of the hill. Sir Topham Hatt spoke kindly to Duck. The accident wasn't your fault. We should have checked that this tail lamp was fixed on properly. We'll soon have you in working order again. Thank you, sir, said Duck sadly. Thomas told me to be careful about fish. They got me in a right pickle, didn't they?
Gordon was resting in a siding. It was a hot day and the express had been heavy.
I get out of breath,
he complained.
But nobody cares. They just say I'll be all right after a rest.
Well, get the Fat Controller to give you some tanks and a bunker, suggested Thomas cheekily. You'll feel a new engine. We tank engines never get out of breath, you know. Perhaps it was lucky for Thomas that poor Gordon hadn't the energy to reply. The men worked hard on Gordon, but they couldn't make him better. "You'll need new tubes, Gordon," they said. "You'll have to go to the works to have them fitted." While Gordon was being mended, Henry pulled the express. But one morning, just before Gordon was due back, Henry was ill too. "We have no spare engine except Thomas," the inspector told the Fat Controller, "but he can't pull the train on his own." "Could Percy help?" asked the Fat Controller. The inspector agreed. The two of them with Doug might manage, he suggested. "It's only as far as the works. They'll sure to have a spare engine there." So the 3 tank engines were coupled together, Thomas nearest the train, Duck in the middle, and Percy at the front. Then slowly they started it. "Come on, come on," puffed Percy importantly. "We're doing it, puffed Duck. Pull harder, grumbled Thomas to the others. The heavy train drew out of the platform. The engines couldn't go as fast as Gordon, but the passengers didn't mind. They knew that Percy, Thomas and Doug were doing their best. Expresses are not like branch line trains. They don't stop at all the stations, and the engines don't have a chance to get their breath back. Soon, the 3 began to feel tired. They struggled vainly up Gordon's hill, but the strain was beginning to tell. "I'm glad we didn't stick there," thought Thomas. "Gordon would never have let us hear the last of it." But the hill proved too much for Percy. His driver blew his whistle and stopped the train. "We can't take you off, Percy," said Thomas's driver. "Do the best you can to keep your brakes off. It's not far now." This made things harder for the other 2, but they struggled gamely on, twin columns of steam shooting high into the air. We're nearly there, puffed Thomas and Doug together as they summoned a last brave effort. Poor Percy had no steam left to say anything. They were just passing the works when Doug found he could go no further. Thomas couldn't pull the heavy train on his own, and the cavalcade came to a standstill a few yards short of the station platform. And there, standing watching from the siding, stood Gordon. The Fat Controller, who had been on the train, told the 3 engines he was proud of them. "You did very well to get so far," he said, "and now you deserve a rest." Duck, Percy and Thomas were uncoupled, and a new engine took their place. As the tank engines moved wearily away, Gordon looked at Thomas. Then he took 3 deep breaths and smiled. He didn't need to say anything. Thomas knew exactly what he meant.
Mainline engines always boast how big they are. Superior.